Alright guys, we are back with episode 2 of the Fragrant Flower, but seeing the name of episode 2 compared to episode 1, I think that it really reinforces how this is a slow burn series. So I think it's cool that we have Rintaro and Keiruko as episode 1's name, and then we have Chidori and Kikyo as episode 2's name. It's just like how other series do it as well. You're obviously going to name an episode, or you're going to call an episode something specific, because that's what's going to be key in that episode. So we begin this morning with Shohei initially complaining to Rintaro about the Kikyo girls, and as he was walking to school this day, or pretty much any day, but this day specifically, he got more bad looks and maybe even verbal harassment, although it wasn't like specifically stated. But we can tell that this is not, like I said in the last episode, this is not in a hateful way, because he's not the one to inherently hate them, such as like Saku or even Ayato, but it's more of an annoyance, I think, and he's annoyed that they have a problem with him and with the students at Chidori. But they're all obviously at Chidori for a reason. They either didn't try very hard in their academics, they come from a bad home life, a broken home life, or maybe it's also just considered one of the lower high schools with academic wise. Because I know that this is in Japan, but even with some US private high schools, there might be those, I guess, similar standards to college or universities, that you may have to have like a certain GPA to get in, or you have to take a certain cognitive test or something like that. But we know this group, we know Rintaro and his group are in there for a specific reason. Another detail we see right at the very beginning as Shohei is talking with him is Rintaro still has the bandage on from last night, and we see that in episode 1, the ending of episode 1 as well, because this is technically the same day. Even though they haven't been talking for like a while, it's only been like probably a couple minutes, Shohei hasn't shown any like reference or desire or anything to ask, hey, why do you have this bandage on your head? What happened to you? Are you okay? Because it sort of looks serious. Like, it looks like you were in a fight or you had like some sort of serious injury. And just a couple minutes later, we see Saku and Ayato arrive in class, and they overhear Shohei and Rintaro talking about the Kikyo girls, or more specifically, Shohei talking and complaining about the Kikyo girls. And this brings me to another question is, they've said that this has gone on for a while. Do we know what grade they're in? Because I still haven't seen anything. Like, I don't want to spoil anything from the manga, but I don't think it has specifically said their grades quite yet. I know that they're in high school. I don't think that they would be considered seniors now, just because that doesn't give them enough time, but I could be wrong. If any of you know who are viewing now and want to put it in the comments, please help me out and say if they are sophomores, juniors, seniors. But Saku and Ayato agree with Shohei initially, just like they did in episode 1, where they have a strong dislike. I feel like the Kikyo students are actually more aggressive towards the Chidori students and have that rage and hate-filled look towards them. While all this is still going on, Rintaro is still thinking about what had gone on yesterday and then what had gone on this morning, and he's definitely still thinking about why he closed the curtain, how surprised he was to see Keiruto on the other side of the window, technically at Kikyo High School, and he's just going through all of these internal emotions right now, trying to sort everything out, because we saw how shocking and extreme it was at the end of episode 1 earlier that morning, and he's still going through those motions. Now, initially, Saku is the first one who brings up referencing the bandage on Rintaro's head. Rintaro just brushes it off. He doesn't really give a specific answer, but just, something minor happened and that's all that was. And Saku knows. He knows something is up, because even the viewer knows, hey, that's too big of a bandage to be on your head for it to be anything minor like. Shortly after, Ayato is the first one to reference the curtains being closed. And this is actually a pretty good detail, because even the group had said that the curtains had always remained open, and Rintaro had liked the curtains being open for several different reasons and rarely closed them at all, and why would they be closed in this instance? So it's a good detail to keep in mind, but Rintaro takes deep offense to this, because Shohei opens his mouth and claims that he probably doesn't want to stare at Kikyo High School, and Rintaro loses it in this moment. And when I saw this, I initially thought, okay, sure, they all have the same dislike for Kikyo, but all the past events that have happened within the last 24 hours, he's not defending Kikyo, he's defending Keiruko, who attends Kikyo, and the shocking experience that he had this morning. And I think it's also fair to say that yes, the Fragrant Flower is definitely a romance anime, and it's a slow burn romance, but I think that calling it a friendship for now is actually pretty important, because you can be passionate about people, you can be passionate about your friends, you can be protective. Probably protective is a better word to use than passionate, but like, you can have a passion for protecting people. All of those slow moments that he had with Keiruko the day before has showed him that Kikyo might not all be the same, and he's not necessarily paying attention to Kikyo itself, but to her. And since she is associated with the school now, he has to be protective in some way. He just has taken it too far in this moment. And again, because of this explosive moment by Rintaro, the rest of the group eases off. Shohei eases off. They kind of end that conversation. And I think they know there's another reason why that happened. Because since we first saw him, Rintaro has had a surprisingly calm and kind demeanor. But I feel like he could have times of, I don't want to say rage, but just anger. And I kind of want to put it as righteous anger, because he's not just angry, he's not just rage-filled about something, he's righteously angry about, oh, they're indirectly attacking Keiruko, who is sort of a friend, but not really a friend. I don't know her that well now, but I want to know her more because I know of her kind personality and the characteristics that we've already seen. And after all this has happened, Rintaro is thinking now, he can't just tell anybody. He even can't just tell his friends, because he doesn't know how they're going to react. Both of these schools have such negative feelings towards each other that even if the group doesn't hate Kikyo, they're going to misunderstand where he's coming from. They don't know Keiruko. They haven't had that one-on-one time with her. They haven't met her before. They're not in the same mindset as Rintaro is, as one of the more introverted members of the group. Even if Saku and Ayato are both introverted, certainly not Shohei. Shohei is our extrovert of the group, but I don't think that they understand, like I said, Rintaro's mindset right now, and all of the misunderstandings that have happened between the schools. And he finds one girl that is completely different than anything that he's been exposed to before, plus dealing with his insecurities that he has and his assumptions that people have about him, even if they might not be completely true. But the guys are not going to understand, or at least understand immediately, what this relationship or what this friendship in this situation is looking like on the early stages. It has to take time. And throughout the day, he continues to think of what that impact of him shutting the curtains would do. He's assuming now that Keiruko is offended, she's not going to come back to the pastry shop. And yes, she does know that he's a Chiyadori student now, but he's assuming that because of what happened and what his action caused is going to rip her away from him and separate any sort of friendship or relationship they had started, and she's not going to return. He also might be thinking specifically that since he goes to Chiyadori and she knows now that he goes to Chiyadori, she's going to think differently of him because of his academic setting, and she's not going to want to either be with romantically or in a starting friendship with someone who is not as like high on the academic standing or the academic list. Again, I don't see him as being a slacker necessarily, but I don't see him as being a genius. Like, I don't see him as being super intelligent. And just as he has been ruled by the assumptions of other people, I wouldn't necessarily consider this judging her what she would think about him, because I feel like there's a difference between judging and jumping to assumptions or conclusions about her thought process and what she might think about him academically, but I don't see this in a judging way, the way that people might judge him based on other things or based on his insecurities that he has. As the school day ends, Rintaro learns that he doesn't have to work today, he doesn't have to go back to the pastry shop and fill in for anybody, so this is his first time, probably in a little while, that he's able to hang out with his friends, he's able to hang out with the group. And Shohei is also surprised because he's still a part of this group, and Rintaro has seemed distant for a little while, whether that just be for a week, 2 weeks, a couple weeks. It's a little bit difficult to tell just because we kind of started the series technically yesterday in the narrative, so we don't know how long he's been distant, or at least been like distant feeling or lonely feeling. The group ultimately decides to go and do karaoke, and as they're leaving the school, we see that there's crowds that are growing at the Chidori and Kikyo gates. We end up seeing that how tight this rivalry actually is when Keiruto is spotted by the Chidori gate. And of course, stemming back to the morning frustrations, Shohei immediately confronts her. And it's kind of funny because he doesn't know that she's actually Keiruko, so he just thinks she's a regular Kikyo girl who's doing something antagonizing. Pretty shortly after, Rintaro shows up right behind Shohei. He pulls him back, he stops the situation from escalating. And I really love how he was so calm and controlled in this situation. Like I had said before, we all know now that Rintaro has a very calm and kind and gentle demeanor, but it's really cool how he can be like stern or assertive, but in a very self-controlled way. And I am really curious because we've seen this kind of demeanor time and time again from Rintaro, and I wonder if this is just like a character trait that he was made with, or if this is something that he's been carrying for a while and having to develop for a while. If something happened in his past where he knew that he had to learn self-control, he could have always had it, but he could have continued to sharpen and develop his self-control where he doesn't escalate any situations. I just feel curious about that because I feel like his demeanor is so strong in some ways that it has to be tied back to the past in some point. He takes, I guess, such offense to this because he wants a girlfriend that badly. He's desperate. And don't get me wrong, I'm also not overlooking that this was an extremely awkward moment for the two of them, or the three of them, Rintaro, Shohei, and Keiruko, because I can't imagine what Keiruko was feeling in that moment. There's just one of these Chidori boys who is sort of like squaring up to her in a sense and just confronting her so aggressively like this. And I feel like this could be a moment too where it reinforces like what she may believe or what she could have believed in the past about the boys of Chidori. But I don't think that this would influence her in any way to judge him. I don't think her character is like that. I don't think her characteristics are like that. Now, this is interesting that two Kikyo girls, Ayu and Suzaku, I believe were their names, were the ones who came to retrieve Keiruko. And I'm wondering if this has any sort of significance towards any of the following episodes in the season. And if these girls were like just classmates of hers, or if they might be a part of her extended or maybe inner circle friend group. And after this whole confrontation like situation is finally resolved, or at least partially resolved, the boys just continue walking on to karaoke, but Rintaro stays a couple steps behind just to contemplate exactly what happened now and how it could affect the future between them. And just like before, it's kind of a combination of negative talk and overthinking and assumptions. I think in episode 2 now, and for these new situations, I don't necessarily think that he's naive. I don't think so. I think he's more of just a massive overthinker, and he overthinks everything. That's exactly what he complains about people doing to him, and now he's assuming things about her just being a Kikyo student and what she might think about him afterwards, because of these unfortunate situations that have taken place, when in reality, it's not that big of a deal. But it being yesterday, she said at least once, if not twice, that she didn't find him scary, and she actually wanted to start talking to him because she's been in the pastry shop for probably the last several months. And I know this might be a smaller detail, but he's also still thinking that he put her in another dangerous situation. And it's sort of annoying to me just because I don't know what he means by dangerous. I don't see this as like a physically dangerous situation. I don't think any of the boys at Chiyodori would have done anything, even if it wasn't Shohei who ended up confronting her and really was like the only one who confronted her. I don't think any of the boys at Chiyodori would have done anything like malicious. I don't see that as happening or being realistic. And I also wonder, once he brought up another dangerous situation, I wonder if some of these words are like key, because we heard this back in episode 1 too, but I feel like could these be keywords that have possibly resurfaced from past trauma, or maybe not even resurfaced but have just been linked to past trauma in some situation? Because sometimes he's acting like this is like a life or death situation, something like that sort of injury, and I can't help but think that it might be related to something traumatic that had happened earlier in his life. Now, as the group is actually at karaoke at this time, we see that Saku is probably the most observant out of the group, because he's still kind of concerned. You can see that he's kind of concerned about Rintaro's head injury and everything that just has happened, you know, with the interaction with Keiruko and Shohei, even when he doesn't know who Keiruko is. And as Rintaro is sitting there waiting to pick a song, he goes back into deep thought, and he's thinking about if he should just keep this sort of secret with him, because he doesn't think that the guys in the group will understand. But eventually he brushes the thought off and explains that he's okay, there's nothing to worry about, he's completely fine. And I like this at the very end because his friends are very supportive of him, and I think this could be something really cool to like reanalyze and examine in the future and in our future episodes during this season, because ever since episode 1, he has had such a strong friend group with Shohei and Saku and Ayato. Even if they have different personalities and have different perspectives about things, I really appreciate how they all look out for this group. Like, I don't see them as all being like in favor of Chiyodori. There's a difference between you having a friend group and you having classmates. While you want to do things to protect your school, it's another thing to be in a very close-knit friend group and have guys that you depend on through high school especially. So I really do appreciate how open this friend group is, and just the quality of his friends that he has is really cool. Later, Rintaro returns from karaoke, and it's probably pretty late at night, and he finds out that Keiruko was actually at the shop waiting for him and waiting for a while. Immediately, she begins to apologize for the situation which happened after school, and she feels bad about how she approached the situation, why she was specifically waiting outside the gate, and the attention that it brought to her, but I think more importantly, the situation between the two of them. And again, just like the last couple times, Rintaro responds with, "It's okay, you know, don't apologize, this was my fault." One thing that I can point out specifically through this is through episode 2 and episode 1, they're both overly kind to each other. Now, I do understand this because they don't have a close relationship yet. I mean, we can obviously expect that there's going to be a closer relationship in the future, but especially for episodes 1 and 2 that we've seen so far, is they're very overly apologetic and overly kind to each other. Now, this isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying kindness is bad, but it seems a little robotic at times and practiced. And it's more of like, it's so similar to greetings or like pleasantries that you exchange. I also think it might be tied to people pleasing a little bit. I don't want to say that specifically for Keiruko. I think she does have a kind demeanor. She was raised well. I feel like you could say like she was raised well, even if we don't know anything about her childhood or her upbringing or her parents or whatever. Like, you can assume just from the way she's acted, she has been raised a certain way. And I'm not saying that Rintaro isn't kind. I think that him being a people pleaser but also being assertive in some situations, like I feel like those two traits could coexist with each other, but the two end up continuing their conversation over cake, and Rintaro asks why she was at the gate, why was she there in the first place? And anyone who watched the episode knows why she was there. She wanted to see him. And what's funny is Rintaro is acting like he's surprised, and like he might very well be surprised about this. But I think that he has to understand at this point, and this is why I call him, I don't think he's naive, because he needs to understand she's actively trying to pursue a friendship with him. I mean, we all understand that this is going to have a romantic twist, but she wants to be friends with him initially, which I think is a great way to start this out for a slow burn. But I don't understand how he can't tell that she just wants to be friends with him. And she continues to pursue him. She continues to pursue him at the gate. She waves to him in the curtains, or she sees him in the curtains, and she decides to pursue him. I don't think he's naive, but I feel like he's so insecure in some ways that he's restricting himself from feeling a certain way. And after all of this, Rinto finally admits that he was glad to see her there. And even though this sounds like a normal sentence, like to a lot of people, maybe not in the context of this episode and of this particular scene, but he's sort of like admitting his love in a sense, but he immediately tries to take it back afterwards. And he knows, because he doesn't want to go too fast. He doesn't want to ruin something. He doesn't want to sound stupid. But then she is the one who literally says, don't take it back. And I feel like this is more for a confirmation for her that this friendship, at least in the beginning, is going to work out. And just like a lot of past moments before, especially in episode 1, it's hard for me now to just know if he's awkward, and I think he's just awkward when talking to girls specifically because of him being at Chiyadori with an all-boys high school. I don't think he's introverted in that way or scared to talk to like other guys or classmates, but I feel like when it comes to girls and he hasn't been approached, or he's been single for so long for his high school career and middle school, he's unfamiliar with it. But I do think that he's awkward in these situations. I don't think Keiruko is, because she seems like she would talk to anybody. Now, what I would say the key of this conversation is Rintaro didn't think that Keiruko would want to still be friends with him because he's a Chiyadori student. We know this is ridiculous, and even Keiruko responds, and she's like, why would you ever think that? This is sort of exposing it very early on, even when she had said it. We are allowing ourselves to continue assumptions about these opposing schools instead of wanting to learn about the people that go there and not generalize. And they're realizing now that they can't be doing that. If they want to pursue a friendship, even at first, something that turns romantic in the later episodes of the season, which, I mean, again, we all think it will, and we all probably know it will, they're starting to expose that this has been happening for so long that let's not do this. And we all know that deep down, probably even right now, that Rintaro doesn't care that she goes to Kikyo. He just was shocked and he was surprised, and he wasn't expecting her to go there because of how kind she was, her character, her characteristics. This is really the start of them trying to flood out generalizations and those assumptions, I think. Before Keiruko ends up leaving for the evening from the pastry shop, she openly says that she wants to pursue a relationship. I don't necessarily mean a romantic relationship, because I don't think we're there quite yet, but a relationship as in a friendship. And she couldn't have been more open with this because it's such a simple dialogue. You can't overanalyze it. But I do find it interesting that Keiruko has a sad face, like it was an actual sad face while she was leaving. It stayed on her for like a second or two, or like 2.5 seconds. Like it was a good chunk of time. And I'm wondering like what they were trying to do right then and there. And of course, again and again, Rintaro is going to overanalyze this. As his mom and him talk upstairs a short moment after, he claims that he doesn't know what's going on. And honestly, I don't really know what to believe here. I don't know if he actually doesn't know what's going on. Like, again, when I said that he wasn't naive, like, I don't think he's naive, but I think that when he claims he doesn't know what's going on, it's because he has been distracting himself probably for years at this point, probably several years. He's been distracting himself with lies about assumptions that people have made about his appearance or his home life. And this is what I really love in this moment, is his mom knows him, and she shines the light here saying, you're doing the exact same thing that you claim people are doing to you. You're doing about her. Now, after this, he goes back into deep thought and he's thinking about this, and he does agree, but this caught me off guard. Rintaro ends up punching himself in the face, punching himself in the nose, and causing himself to bleed. Like, not just from his nose, not just a nosebleed, but like his cheek and everything. When I first watched this was crazy. I think that this reinforces my trauma belief about him specifically, since we haven't seen his dad at all. This is why I keep going back to, does he have a broken home life? Does he have some sort of trauma, household trauma with his dad that had been going on when he was younger? Is his mom divorced from his dad? Are they living separately? Are they divorced? Is it like official? I continue to wonder why he goes to violence first. On the other end, I feel like he feels like such a horrible person that him punching himself might be a reality check. The next morning, Rintaro arrives at the Kikyo gates pretty early in the morning, just like the first episode, and he waits for Keiruko to apologize to her. Now, initially when I first watched this, I thought that when he was going to apologize to her was him saying that because he was a Chidori student, she thought that he might already have given up on the relationship. We have to keep it real that I feel like they both like each other, even if they're like sort of friends, sort of strangers still, like not knowing each other quite yet. And this is all being tied back to the sad face that she made while she was leaving the shop. But then as Keiruko has a realization of what had happened, she begins to apologize because she knows that she made that face, and it was probably more of a reckless face. She's acting like she made it more recklessly than anything. She knows it has caused him confusion and disruption to where he has to again apologize to her for something that's minimal and really doesn't matter. But she does end up asking him at the end of her crying that how can he be so kind and understanding? And this is just another great reinforcement of, she knows I'm kind. She doesn't find me scary. She sees me as a regular person. And at this moment, Rintaro goes back into deep thought, and he realizes that Keiruko has been always open and honest with him. And really the key here is like honesty, yes, but she has always been open with him. This was a really cool moment because I think it showed growth within him. And I see him like letting go of chains of whether it's insecurity or whether it's assumption. He is finally letting go of some. And he's saying, I have to be open with her. And he actually does that. He goes back to the previous evening and reinstates how glad he was to see her when she was there. And he exposes the feelings that he's been feeling up until now, and that he wants to know her, and he's glad that she's there. And I really think that this is a fresh start for these two. I know it sounds like this could be like the end of a season for how much like push and pull that we've had, and how we've had like so many extremes and like different moments and like misunderstandings. And it's just funny how this is just the second episode, but it's cool that within this small chunk of time, we finally have like a sort of understanding. Like I want to say a full understanding, but we have a sort of understanding and a clean slate and a fresh start for now. But to end the episode, Rintaro texts her about the misunderstanding with the curtain, which probably should have been the first thing that was addressed, like the overall first thing of this episode in the beginning that was addressed at the gate, and that's, you know, what should have happened. But she took no offense to it. And as they both prepare for another day of school, Rintaro returns to deep thought by the same window where she's at, where they were just waving, the two of them, and how much he wants to learn more about her. And I really like where it ended off. It just shows that we are in for a wild, crazy, fun ride of emotional depth, and really an emotional depth that I haven't seen before in a lot of shows. I think it's because this specifically is slice of life and romance, and of course because this is a slow burn series, we get to see so much more emotional depth. Like I even said in episode 1, I'm very excited for the emotional depth of this show and how it's going to continue on throughout the weeks and throughout the episodes. And speaking of episodes, oh my gosh, I know I'm so sorry that I'm very late to this now. I think that the season now is on episode 6, or with it being October 4th or October 5th, which is Sunday. I think it's episode 6 that is coming out. And for me being on episode 2 right now, I know that a lot of people already know, and there's probably spoilers out there and everything. I ask that you please don't spoil anything from me. I don't expect people to be sending a bunch of things to me or anything like that, but anybody who does watch or does contact or whatever, please don't send any spoilers. I want to continue to enjoy this anime and this series. But let me know how you guys enjoyed episode 2. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if I missed anything. Put anything that I missed in the comments or any of your thoughts. What did you think of the episode? And what are other different perspectives or interpretations or theories that you have about this series? Remember to put all those down in the comments. And remember, with that being said, if any of you are also Miraculous fans, or you are my Miraculous fans who just are in the series or who have been watching these episodes so far, Miraculous episodes, like the actual season 6 episodes, are going to be coming out. I'm going to be putting out more videos about Miraculous, about season 6, about the progression of season 6.